Welcome to the Sam Roberts Show, Matthew Fox. How are you?
I'm very good, sir. How are you?
I'm great. You got the new movie is Emperor, and you're in it with Tommy Lee Jones.
Yep.
And it's the story of right after World War II, the United States kind of trying to bring peace to Japan, correct?
That's right. You know, it's the Japanese surrendered on August 14th of 1945, and within, I think, 2 weeks, on the 28th or something, MacArthur landed in Tokyo, what was left of Tokyo, with a very small group of his closest aides, and they began setting up an occupation, and they headquartered their operations out of a building called the Daiichi. And his the first thing that they needed to do was round up and apprehend a blacklist of war criminals, and then the sort of even the bigger responsibility that MacArthur had to Washington was to decide what to do about Emperor Hirohito. And MacArthur hands that responsibility over to a brigadier general by the name of Bonner Fellers, who had served under MacArthur throughout the South Pacific Campaign and was sort of his right-hand man, and was a Japanese expert. And so the movie really focuses on that 1945 investigation, which happens over 10 days, and Fellers attempting to find proof one way or the other if Hirohito is guilty of directly ordering the attack on Pearl Harbor, whether he's going to be removed as Emperor of Japan and put on trial, or whether he's going to maintain the emperorship and as we help rebuild Japan.
Are you a history guy? Do you like United States history, world history?
I do. I really do, but I feel like I'm so lacking in so much history.
Yeah.
And so, but when I am in a situation where I'm learning history, I totally enjoy it.
And did you have to, do you have to research the history to get into this movie, or is it's on the paper for you? You don't really.
Well, by the time I read the script, I felt like so much research had already been done and was represented in the script.
So this is the type of movie that a high school kid could go to and skip 2 chapters in the textbook. Just watch the movie. You get everything you need out of it.
I hope so, and I hope that it's not presented in a way that feels like history. It feels like a really good story that's got a sort of a thriller aspect built into, almost a noirish thriller aspect built into the military investigation of 45. And so I hope it is an eye-opener and potentially inspires people to dig deeper into this moment of history, and at the same time is a really good story.
And how is Tommy Lee Jones to work with? I mean, he's a guy who's been around forever. He's been in everything. He's a legend.
Yeah.
You find out he's the guy you're working with. What's that like?
It was fantastic.
Yeah?
I mean, I really couldn't think of any other actor that was more suited to play MacArthur. I mean, for me personally, I was like, that is just absolutely beautiful. And I'm a big fan of his sort of body of work and the way that he's approached his career. And so I was very excited, and it was a really good experience. I mean, he's a total pro and approaches his work with a lot of focus and dedication, and he's definitely, right to the point. There's no sort of, messing around the edges. I mean,
he knows what he's doing.
It's all business, and I really like that. I mean, I like people that approach the work that way.
It's amazing that guys like that can not only pull off, something like this, like Emperor and Lincoln, and roles like this that are kind of serious, real life people, and then also pull off Two-Face, because he did a hell of a job playing Two-Face as well.
Yeah,
and not the serious Two-Face either, the comic book weird Two-Face, but he did it.
He did it.
You didn't bring that up to him, did you?
No, I did not.
I absolutely would have. I would have done it on the first day, just so we could figure out what the relationship's going to be going forward.
No.
Well, you were probably smarter than me to do that. So you said once that Lost was it as far as TV for you, that once Lost is done, you're kind of done doing TV shows. Do you still, now that Lost is done, do you feel that way? Are you you're done with series? You had Party of Five, you had Lost, 2 monster series.
Yeah, I do feel that way, but I mean, I think that, when I've said that, people have sort of interpreted it as I'm like, oh, I'm going to go be some big movie star now, and then I frown on television, because it's just not the case. I mean, I think that some of the absolute best storytelling is happening in television. It's an amazing time for television, and it's even changing. Like Kevin Spacey's new series that went direct to Netflix. I mean, that's the future of it, and I think that television, sort of long form storytelling, has a very bright future because more chances can be taken and more specific audiences can be reached with very specific types of storytelling.
But you like to be like in and out now. You like to get the story told
and get
be
out.
Done.
Yeah, that honestly. So that decision on my part is only based on my own personal preference of how I want to have more control over when I'm working and when I'm not. When I want to be able to say, you know what, I'm kind of burned out right now. I want to take 6 months and just be home with my family, my kids, and be a dad and focus on all the things that are really important to me. And so that's really the only reason that I would say that getting involved in a 6-year television show again would be something that I'm not going to do.
And that's the goal too. Like you don't know if it's going to be a 6-year television show, but that's a best case scenario.
Yeah,
that you are tied up for the next 6 years.
Exactly.
Going into this. Plus, I would assume, especially after Lost, you got to be pretty well set that you're not at the point where you have to count on each next paycheck. You can kind of set your boundaries that way.
No, I mean I was an economics major in college, and I wanted to be sure that after Party of Five was over, I was in a situation where I was, not taking work because I needed to take work, but I was taking work because it was creatively inspiring to me and exciting, and I felt it was going to be challenging.
You were able to do that after Party of Five? Like you invested in everything and had your stuff together at that point?
Yeah, well, I mean, and the way that Margarita and I handle our lives, we don't live any kind of like crazy extravagant lifestyle. I mean, we enjoy the things that we enjoy, and we've been thoughtful, and we've got 2 kids that we want to put through college, and
starting the college friends. And you don't live you live like up in the mountains, right?
Very right next to the mountains up in Central Oregon, yeah.
Yeah, and so I guess that's just smart. You know what I mean? Like especially once you get this after you get the first successful series, you're like, you don't need to be in the hustle and bustle anymore, and you can get like a giant house, out in the mountains for like what it would cost for a 2-bedroom in LA or New York.
Yeah, there are people that would still maintain that being like that I should be in Hollywood. I mean, I think that, but I've always envisioned that. I kind of wanted to live outside of that whole thing and come in and out and do the business that I come to LA pretty frequently and meet with directors that I'm. If I'm pursuing a project and I feel like I've got to sort of get out there and win that, I'll come down to LA and meet with people for a couple of days and try to get the things that I want to get.
You can afford a couple of hotel rooms to hustle if you need to.
If I had to, yeah.
And I mean, and you're still like, and you got World War Z coming out this summer.
Yeah.
So you have this is going to be a massive movie, Emperor. You got World War Z in June, so everything is stacked in your favor right now.
It's
Do you pay attention to numbers? Like, at this point, are you going to sit there, like, trying to make sure the box office is good and all that? Or
no, I pretty much will just, put my hands over my ears, and if the news is good, somebody will let me know, I'm sure.
Yeah. You'll read all the good reviews.
Only the good ones.
Yeah. Did you like how Lost ended?
I did.
You did? Did you know that that's how it was going to end? They always say, we know how it's going to end from the beginning. But I always get the impression that, like, nobody knows how long the series is going to go. And I always assume that that's not true, that they had an idea in season 1. This is how we would end if we ended early. But then, I don't know, let's keep this thing rolling.
I think that Lost was pretty special in that respect because Damon Lindelof really did have an idea of how he wanted the show to end. And he knew when he wanted it to end. And so, I really loved how it ended. I feel like the show, what made Lost special was how much it demanded of the audience to sort of theorize and interpret. And so for the ending to be an ending that could be interpreted in a bunch of different ways and is something that people still talk about and some people were unhappy with because it didn't have enough closure. But I really loved that it was open to interpretation because I think that was the signature of the show, and it would be kind of anti-Lost to me if it wrapped up in a way where the bow was tied and all the answers were given.
I mean, in the 3rd episode, when there are polar bears running around the jungle, you realize that maybe not every question is going to be directly addressed.
For sure.
You got to kind of assess. And as far as closure goes, I feel like for major series like Lost was, The Sopranos kind of made it easy on everybody.
Sure.
That there was so no closure in the ending of that it's like, okay, we could do it.
Anything goes. Yeah.
Right. Everything's fine. Do you have to, when you do a movie like Emperor, do you have to learn about Japanese culture? Or is most of it taking place with like you and Tommy Lee Jones and the American side of things?
I think I did learn, because I think I did learn a bit about Japanese culture, especially the way that they viewed their emperor in 1945. I mean, I think that, it's hard to play a guy like Fellers and sort of go down the road that he goes down and spend 4 or 5 months sort of looking at the world through looking at a historical moment of time through his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And not learn the stuff that he learned to a certain degree. So I would say that I did, but
you're not sitting there researching books on Japanese,
No, I didn't think that was necessary. I mean, whenever you're dealing with like a guy that actually existed, a man and or a moment in time that's based on history, I feel like as an actor, you have this interesting line that you have to walk where you research to only the things that are going to help you, and then there are things that you could know that would actually kind of get in the way of the film that you're trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
And so
like your character would not have all that information going in,
right?
Exactly.
You don't want to over research and know things about the guy that he wouldn't know about himself.
Yeah. Do your kids, do they realize not only like how famous you are, but how fanatical some of your fans are over the projects you've done, especially Lost? Like, do they know the extent to which your work is looked at?
I think that, when we travel together, and it doesn't happen often anymore, but when we travel together,
you don't travel often together?
No, it doesn't happen often anymore that people will approach me when we're together. And, I think that people have kind of, when they see me with my children, maybe they don't feel as comfortable about coming up and asking for a picture. It does happen every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
And like my little boy's 11, and he's always like, kind of blown away by that whole thing. So he
doesn't have the mindset that every little boy's dad gets asked for pictures when they're going through the airport.
No, he's always like, what, that guy recognized you. He's always kind of, that guy recognized you. He wanted your picture.
You're like, yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
I remember. I was there for the whole time. So what? Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you about. Alex Cross, the movie that you did where you had to lose like a obscene amount of weight.
Right.
How did you do that? Like you
well, that was my idea. I mean, you sort of asked the question as like I had to, and like somebody was telling me that I had to.
Yeah,
that was really all my decision. In fact, when Rob Cohen sort of saw me for the first time after we hadn't seen each other for months, and in fact we were just having like really intense phone conversations and trading emails and stuff about the guy. When I showed up for the first time in Cleveland to sort of start pre-production, he was really like, whoa. Because I really don't think, I told him that I was losing weight, and then I had this idea that this guy would be sort of disturbingly, his ideas about himself and his position in the world would be actually consuming his own physique. And so that was my idea. And the way that I went about it is I got help. I talked to a guy who kind of specializes in this type of thing. He's a really intense sort of, physical trainer and nutritionist. I met him in London because I was doing a play there at the time. And
so then does he tell you how to do everything like wrong, like how to not give yourself enough nutrition and just lose all the weight?
No, actually, he basically just structures a diet. And one of the things that I requested when I signed on to do the movie, I was like, well, I want you guys to pay for a meal plan for the next 6 months. And then he structured what that meal plan would be like. And then every day, basically a little cooler would show up in front of my apartment when I was in London or in Bend at home, would show up, and I would only eat what was in the bag. And Simon, the man that I'm talking about, he would just basically fluctuate the calorie intake and how how those calories were made up, proteins versus there was no carbohydrates. And it was a real exercise in discipline.
Yeah.
me, really. That was part of the thing for me, was like, can I do the idea that I have? Can I actually do it?
And you feel like you did?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's dramatic. How does your family react to like such a dramatic physical change in you?
They hated it.
They did, right?
Now, my daughter came up to me about, 4 months into it and said, Dad, you just look disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah.
You look disgusting. And
well, you did. You looked freakish, you know? I think that was the intent.
That was the intent.
Yeah, yeah.
That was absolutely the intent. That's what I was going for. And, my mom, Italian mother, was like, literally every time I see her, she would gasp and put her hand to her chest and beg to feed me something. I mean,
You're not eating enough.
Oh, yeah. No, she was really not happy. My wife, who's Italian as well and a phenomenal cook, just we're on the same page with what I was going for, So she was really supportive. But yeah, it was a heck of an experience, and I it was the first time that somebody showed me that image that got floated out onto the internet when he's in the the cage.
In the cage, yeah. That's the one I was looking at.
That's when I was like, wow, it really is. You really did. I did feel like I'd accomplished the idea that I had been going for.
Right. The problem with doing it without makeup is that then you go home and, like you said, your family's looking at that guy.
Right.
You're like, hey, honey, I'm home.
Right.
It's not the same thing.
No.
So you're talking about how you live kind of outside of the Hollywood system almost. Like you live literally outside of Hollywood. Do you maintain relationships with your co-stars, or is it, like you said, like Tommy Lee Jones, like you go in, the work is the work, and you're done?
Pretty much. I mean, there are people like I just recently reconnected with Neve Campbell from Party of Five.
Yeah.
And I was doing that play in London, and she was living in London at the time. And it was incredible. It was incredible to see Neve again. So, I think that if you stay in this business long enough, you work with people and then you cross paths with them again. I mean, it's amazing how small a world it really is over time.
Isn't it crazy about Party of Five, too? The way watching everybody's kind of fame just up. Now it's my turn. Now it's like Neve gets the big scream bump, and then you get the big loss bump, and then Lacey pops up in Mean Girls, and it's just like everybody watching everybody get their turn.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of one of those things where you're just reconnecting with people. And
yeah. I mean, living where we live, I really feel like right now I kind of go do a gig, and I leave the gig and I come home. But then inevitably I will run into those people that I worked with, and are sort of the group of people that you're all hanging out together working on something for 3 months. You will run into those people again at some point.
And you'll build these relationships. And then does it blow your mind, without getting crazy into specifics, does it blow your mind when people that you work with are then going to the internet to take shots? You know what I mean? Like for me, like if there were people who I work with taking shots at me, I'd be like, come on, dude, just call me if you have a problem. If not, let it be.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. To be honest with you, it does. It does blow my mind.
It's a weird thing.
It is a weird thing, and it's something that I think about often. I mean, not in that specific situation that I think you're talking about, but just in general, like what the whole Twitter, social media, how people bully each other, how incredibly negative and mean and cynical people are through that medium.
It's like I'm sitting there, like people who are following me on Twitter. These are my fans, quote unquote, my listeners, and they have something horrible to say about everything I've ever done.
I mean, it's just unbelievable to me.
It's like, why even?
Why even? I mean, don't you have anything better to do than that?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you really got to be sort of very, very unhappy and bitter.
Yeah.
To sort of express yourself that way against somebody else like that. I mean,
well, I'm always glad to hear people who have figured out how to make the weird business of Hollywood work for them. And I mean, it makes me happy that you were able to take your Party of Five money, set up a nice life, and then move on to do what you want. You know what I mean?
Thank you, man.
It's a good thing. Emperor is the movie. Tommy Lee Jones, Matthew Fox, and like he said, it's like an exciting historical movie, because like Lincoln was a great movie, but it was a history movie. It was not one of those things that you'll throw on again and again and again. It was great, but we throw in a little intrigue and suspense and
tension.
It's definitely one you want to check out. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Matthew.
man. Thank you.
Matthew Fox on the Sam Roberts Show. That's right, you little hobbit. You see me sneak in that little question? That little hobbit keeps shitting on him on Twitter. Matthew Fox doesn't fly with him. I don't know if you heard about it, but Dominic Monaghan, he said he didn't like Matthew Fox. He accused him of being a woman beater on Twitter. Matthew Fox was all like, look, I'm trying to live in Portland right now. I'm not trying to hear that.